Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
How to pressure transfer, Backsweetening my beer, explaining rice holes and their purpose, and a Kegerator Buildout question. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 293. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, open up the World Wide Web, go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or call and leave a voicemail and get $25 gift card to 325-305-6107. I'm your host, Joshua Stubing, joined by my co-host every week. He is the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer, and also regular co-host on the show, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, welcome back. How's your week been?
Good.
That's good.
Good.
I haven't
Good.
been.
We had really good lunch today, by the way.
Todd already rubbed it in. Why are you starting off the show like that, James? You're starting it off just bragging. He told me to. You know what's so messed up? I'll give context to people listening. They did burgers. They grilled burgers. James, every time you're involved with the food, I want to be there because you made us meatball subs one time, then you made us pizza one. It was phenomenal. But so Todd's like, we're talking about lunch. He goes, "Oh yeah, my lunch today. We're doing burgers for everybody here." I was like, why couldn't you wait till I come up? And he's like, well, we're actually going to do it every other week because that's when I come up there.
Yeah, we're on a schedule already.
Oh gosh, hey, you got to turn your gain down again. It peaked on me. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, last call you complained that I wasn't loud enough.
No, there you go. So no, last call we were on a call with people helping us out with some stuff, and he was using the mic built into the webcam, and
it was.
Yeah. Yes, it was. The people we made it so awkward for them, James. They had no idea what to do because I'm dogging on. I'm like, well, at your age, I know you need some help with the technology.
The interwebs. And then just a few minutes later, they're trying to get him to do something technical that and
I couldn't do it.
Probably should have set up like 2 years ago. And I'm like, technology's hard.
Oh, technology. Yeah, We have a tendency to do that sometimes when we're around each other and make it awkward for everyone else around me. He basically called me every ugly word under the sun, and they're like, "Oh my god,
like, what the hell's the deal?"
He fired me twice on this vendor call. It was crazy. But anyway, so we have some small talk. Real quick, I believe the next time I'm up there, we're gonna schedule it out to have you come out to the ranch. And we're going to film the alt beer taste test using Old Mecklenburg Copper and a plethora of the Dusseldorf ones that are also received. How hard is it for y'all to be there knowing those mini kegs of legit Dusseldorf alt beers are upstairs? Have y'all already opened one? You can be honest.
As far as you know.
See? I knew it. If I was a betting man, y'all opened up Schlussel. I don't think you actually did, but if y'all were to have opened one up, I bet Schlussel's the one. Y'all did open it, didn't you?
No. But the good thing is that they're upstairs on the shelf. You can't see them. It's not like when you open up the fridge in the brew room and see them every time you open the door.
I'm looking back and forth.
No, we haven't touched them.
I believe you. You have a good poker face, though. Todd, look at me in the eyes and tell me you haven't opened up one of the alts.
I didn't say anything. What are the questions?
Yeah, you're
today?
Such a bad liar. I don't think you really have. So we got that coming up, and I think we got to figure out how to structure it because in my mind, I think this is the kind of blind taste test that would be interesting to viewers, because we always talk about, like, especially, I agree with everything you ever say about it, James. When we get alt beer from listeners or we try some commercial ones, there's just something that is not Dusseldorf centric. Maybe it's the water profile we're talking about. I have no idea, but it would be interesting to see if we could get even more commercial beers. But there's just not that many good examples of commercial alts in the States.
There are almost no commercial alts. I mean, as many beers as they are, but it's the percentage of commercial alts is a very small. You have to put a lot of zeros after the period, right?
Yeah, and let's think about that for a minute. Why is that?
Right.
As many breweries that want to put out the next new big thing, you would think somebody is aware of an alt beer and realize how good they are, and people really would like those. I never have understood why that isn't brewed more.
Dude, I'm with you. I don't get it. And the ones that are available, even that one in Fredericksburg that everyone's like, oh, they're award winning. I don't get it. They're not. It's a beautiful campus and really nice people, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know they put a lot of money into it. God bless them. I hope only the best for them. I like visiting Fredericksburg now, and the campus is beautiful, but the alt beer is not that good of an alt beer. It's not a bad amber ale, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's not. And again, I'm talking like I could brew a good alt beer. Guys, let me get this out of the way, listeners at home and viewers at youtube.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. I can't brew a great alt beer unless I follow James's recipe to a T and everything goes according to plan, fermentation wise and all that. I will say the Kaiser strain from Imperial has been my best bet in producing alts. I don't know what you've been using Kaiser as well, haven't you? The last few batches?
Absolutely, yep.
Right. And I would say that's been the best bet for reproducing a Dusseldorf alt. But yeah, I'm with you, James. I don't know why. Why aren't more commercial breweries stepping out on a limb? Maybe it's because the number 1,455, 10,000, whatever ranked podcast is making fun of them. Maybe it's our fault. Our reach has finally come back and getting these big breweries to not want to do it. But anyway, so the alt beer taste test coming up. I don't remember last week if we talked about it. I took a keg of your pressure pills. That's what I'm calling it. Or I guess, is it a pills or is it just a lager? The one you did under pressure there in the brew room.
Yeah, it's a pills. Yeah, I've got pills and malt. I've got Carapils and tradition hops. That's it.
Yeah, so I have it labeled on their pressure pills just because we have when I take it to my pops, we have your wheat lager on tap. We have that other Pilsner you did on tap too. So I'm just trying to separate it. But I don't remember if we talked about it last week or not, how incredible it turned out. I took a draw off of it from my beer fridge out here in my garage. Dude, that I think I'm a total believer now in the powers of pressure fermentation.
Yeah, and that's it's just a super simple recipe. I want to say, Todd, I think it was 28 pounds of Pils and malt, 1.5 pounds of Carapils, and 5 ounces of German tradition hops. Yeah. We did yielded about 17 gallons on that batch, I believe.
Yep.
Right at 5% alcohol by volume. We have we did a DME.
The DME Kolsch. Yep.
Kolsch. It's in the Spike Conical right now. And so when you get here next week, we'll keg it.
And that turned out
to take home.
I was really happy. The only thing is I have this thing about my palate, and it could be because I already knew. So I'm open to saying that I'm impressionable and the power of suggestion was in my brain. When I tasted it, it was delicious, but it had that hint of like, yeah, that's not an all grain batch. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that derogatorily. Yeah. It's not like it's like oxidated or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, it was probably a net strat beer is the kind of thing that pops in my mind. Does that make sense?
What's funny is that's gone away.
No way. But you know what I'm talking about when we first tried it.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah. I mentioned it, when we took a taste. It's gone now. I don't know what that was, but, and maybe it's our mind messing with us, but
it could totally be, right? But it turned out good, even if it tasted the way it did when I was there 10 days ago. That would have been. It was still a great Kolsch. It still turned out good, and that was literally as straightforward of a recipe as possible.
Super simple, yeah. In fact, we had filled the bowl pot the day before up.
Yeah,
and when I got to work, Todd already had it boiling and had the sugar in it, so it was going. We were done by lunch. It was finished and in the conical.
That's fantastic.
And we were also testing out a new Cold strain of dry yeast.
That's right.
On that.
Yeah. Was it that? What was it? The Lalaman? It was, right? That's what we.
Yeah, and it called for a lot more.
A lot
packs. More. And I don't think we needed that many. I think it had us overpitch it really.
Like to be like as a liability, you think, or why is that? I mean, liability isn't just.
We used their calculator, but
okay.
I mean, it was. I think we would have been fine with 4 or 5.
Yeah. 4 or 5 for sure.
And that one was temperature controlled, not pressure, nothing special, right?
No, I pressure fermented.
Oh, so you did do pressure. Oh, so you probably and so people at home remember I am now a pressure fermentation pro. So don't send me your hate mail if I'm saying this wrong, but I believe with pressure you could have probably gotten away with a little bit of underpitching from their calculator. I'm saying,
because I mean the yeast doubles a lot quicker.
That was my understanding with the temperature.
It grows quicker with the warmer temperature. And I think we had that set at 70 degrees room temp. So it was done. It was completely finished fermenting by Tuesday. So we cold crashed it that Tuesday.
I love that.
And it's been sitting in there for 2 weeks now.
Mainly too, because y'all are brewing so much, you just don't have any space anymore. Like that was going to be my segue to you, Todd. You for like 3 weeks, I felt like you were brewing twice a week. And you were not just brewing; you were doing 18-gallon or 17-gallon batches. Pardon me.
And I have tried so hard to get you to take keg home for the last 3 visits. I absolutely refused to take them
I know.
home.
I did. I legitimately did forget. But the keg you're really pushing on me though is that pepper pills or whatever.
No, that's not true. I told you could have any keg from our.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
Yeah, because are you kidding me? You went. I don't want that. Well, this is the one I help brew. I want this one.
I did. You're right. I do sound like that. Not enough speech impediment, but I do kind of sound like that. and I did say that. You're right. I remember saying that. I don't remember you agreeing with me. That's what I'm saying.
It's never stopped you before.
That is also true. That you're absolutely right. We were together too much.
I don't want you to have that one because I like that one a lot.
You remember, here's how I'm remembering it. I wanted the barn beer. And you said, no, dude, I only have 1 keg of that left. And that's why I thought I couldn't have any beer I wanted. Because I wanted the barn beer. I'm going back and forth, James, with what he has on tap, the barn beer or the ESB between my current favorite on tap. Because that ESB is so good. It finished out.
I tell you, Todd knows how to brew an ESB.
Holy moly, you do. The last 3 batches of ESB over the last 4 years probably, because you don't brew it a ton, have been killer. And this one, we could send some to Lorena because there's no Fuggles in this one. You reassured me.
we need to put that a label.
No Fuggles?
Fuggle free.
With the
Fuggle free.
Yes, with the circle and the thing, Fuggles free. Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
You know what? It all rhymes. Fuggle free ESB.
That's right. That's what I will when so. I loved his ESB so much, and it's a recipe. It's like the true to style, but he tweaked it a little, and so we're gonna do Todd's ESB. I cannot wait to show y'all the artwork I did for Todd's ESB. Todd, do you remember it?
I found it slightly offensive.
I was kind of in a mood. I had just gotten lectured about my work ethic or something. So, but but let me say, with that being said, let me say,
hurt much?
Oh, all the time. You're around me. You know I'm sensitive.
Well, I can too. I'm king for that.
I'm not just sensitive, James. I'm also petty. But not this month. Let me put it on the screen. Y'all can't see it, but the viewers at home can. It is the West Coast Pale Ale. If you're in one of our recipe receiving tiers of the Trub Club at patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour, you're going out with the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale clone. Yes, I took their artwork and just put West Coast on there, and then we're it is maybe copyright infringement, but I make no money, guys. Don't sue me. Flagship from our friends at Imperial is what's going out. We all 3 of us can wholeheartedly assure you that Flagship is a phenomenal strain, and it is the liquid form of the Chico or the Safale 05, the very standard pale ale strain that people use. So is this one like Todd? You've been brewing these recipes. Did you brew this one already? I know you put it into Brewer's Friend. I don't know if you brewed it though.
The clone. No, I haven't brewed it yet.
Okay, so when you do, because you plan on brewing all the recipes with Trub Club.
Did you order the yeast for me when you ordered the last yeast?
Yeah, Flagship's upstairs. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's plenty of flagship up there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'll brew it.
So are you going to do this? Is this a style you think under pressure? Like, is like turning beers around quick going to be our thing now with trying to do stuff under pressure? Is this one you want to just leave in your Spike CF15?
No, I would just probably leave it in the Spike. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking about doing it, brewing.
You could do the pressure, and I could do regular. I mean, I like pressure fermenting, but I'm not. It seems like it tampers down the hops a little bit. And for that style of beer, I'm not sure
that you want that to happen. Yeah.
That I want that to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I won't do it then. Maybe again, our buddy Jonathan Marut, he's probably yelling at the screen, "No, this is why you should do it," or "This is why you shouldn't." He'll text me as soon as he listens to this episode and tell me why I'm an idiot. But so yes, back on the screen one more time, the West Coast Pale Ale. When you join one of our recipe receiving tiers at patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. I've got 4 questions for us today, but before we get into those, it's time for listener feedback. That's the smoothest I've ever done that transition before. Our listener feedback's from our buddy Clay Beck, giving us some feedback on cooling down wort during summer brew days.
Hey guys, it's Clay Beck, aka the best Clay you know. Got a little listener feedback for last week's discussion about chilling in the hot weather. The hot Georgia summers, they kind of made me get a little creative. So what I like to do is, after I get done lautering, what I'll do is I'll take my cooler mash tun, clean it out, get it all nice and flushed out, fill it with water and either ice that I borrow from work or frozen water bottles if you want to go that route. And by the time the boil is done, the water's pretty cold, so you got about 8 to 10 gallons of cold water. Then I take a cheap pond pump, dunk it in, hook it up to the water inside of my plate chiller, and then bada bing, bada boom. You got a cold liquor tank. So hope that helps anybody who's trying to knock out in the hot weather. Keep on brewing, and cheers, guys.
Great feedback. Yeah, that like we had mentioned before on a previous episode, where doing the double immersion has been what's worked for us, where we get the wort down with our groundwater to 100, give or take, right, Todd? Before you start putting the ice on.
Yeah, but I mean, he's talking about a plate chiller, so it's totally different. And
right.
I've heard of people doing that before, where they're chilling their. We talked about doing it with the glycol system before, but. Where they're chilling the plate chiller water, because it's with that your wort's going through it, the cold water's coming around it, and it's coming out what it is, and you can't really cool it anymore. So you gotta get it right, and you adjust it coming out at the right temperature by speeding up or slowing down how fast the wort's going through it. Is how people would normally do it. So. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to chill the water and do it that way.
Yeah, and it keeps the most important thing is when you figure out how to cool your wort down, you don't have excuses anymore to not brew during the summer. Like that's what I've learned when like I've used the summer heat. I was like, oh no, it's too hot, can't brew, can't get the wort down. And then that's years ago when Todd's like, no, you just do this double immersion thing. I'm like, oh, now he's going to just realize I'm lazy. That's why I'm not brewing in the summer. Like I'm not brewing as much. And now actually I have electric brewing, which don't get me wrong, that doesn't necessarily solve the cool down side as much at all. But the used to, I'd be like, oh, we have the cooler system. I don't want to brew outside. It's hot. All right, got an all-in-one. Oh crap! Or like the y'all's Herm setup. Okay, now you can brew, and it's in temperature controlled brew.
Yeah, I never ever think about what the season is. And it has no influence whatsoever on whether I'm going to brew or not.
No,
in fact, I think I brew more in the summer now because it's so damn hot outside.
Nothing else
I can brew in the air conditioning.
Well, this summer especially, you brewed more this summer than I've brewed the last 2 years, dude. You were pumping out. How many beers have you pumped out? Not in gallons, just in styles. It's since January. 15?
I really don't know.
James, what do you think? I mean, I could do the math after the show. I have to use fingers and toes, but I think like 15 different batches I think you've done since January.
Oh, easy.
Right?
Yeah. He may have done 15 the first quarter.
He may. You're absolutely right. It may. I was saying 15 to be safe. I would take the over on 15. Todd, you've been a brewing machine of different styles. You did double brew days a couple times too. So yeah, it's easily over 15.
James has brewed a ton of beers too.
He has. Yeah. Both of you guys are putting me to shame. Y'all brewed more beers this year than I've brewed my entire life. I got to catch up. And I need to get a Herm system. And this is another weekly reminder. Pop, make room for the brow tag, please, so that we can get in the beer. We can get in the beer trade.
It's basically Scott's fault that you haven't brewed.
It is. Let's get him on. Hey, that reminds me too. Episode 300 is coming up. In 7 weeks. This is 293. I think we should get him on 300 with us. Okay. I mean, we have a bunch of guests, but we got to plan it out. We either need to, if we're doing a live stream, we have to do it from either my house or from the brew room, because the barn, the Starlink's not reliable enough for live stream. We learned that when Jonathan was up there, and my pop's house is not reliable enough for live stream. I learned that a couple years ago. So we'll have to figure out location. I think we should do it in the brew room if we're going to do a live stream. If we don't live stream, which I don't care if we do, we can do it from the barn and throw a big 300th party. I think that'd be fun. Maybe we do it.
I don't want to drive home after the live stream. Yeah. after the recording.
Okay, you're right. So we're doing.
Well, and he's got a pool. So I mean,
let's do it from the pool. Can we we can't drive the brow tog up there, but I could bring the G40. We could brew a 10-gallon batch up by the pool. That'd be fun. Yeah. Do you have a 240 connection up there, or 220 or whatever it is?
I can.
Hey, here we go. I won't make this.
I'll just wire one in.
I won't make us do all the planning for 300 on here, but I'm getting excited. People have been reaching out to me through email and direct messages about what are y'all doing for 300, and they asked us if we were going. A lot of people in our Trub Club private group on Facebook and in DMs. Great American Beer Festival's coming up, and there are people asking, we should do a Homebrew Happy Hour meetup if y'all go. I was like, I'm not going. As far as I know, Todd, you're not going.
No.
And James, you're not going. Yeah. No. I'd love to go.
Last time I looked last week, they still had tickets.
Did they really?
I think Saturday is the only one that was sold. Oh, no, pardon me. Friday was the only night sold out. Yep. They had Thursdays and Saturdays. Because I looked when someone...
Isn't that crazy?
It is. That's wild. What's the first one in person for the last 2 years, right? They didn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been in years. I should go again sometime.
You should go. Yeah. It's fun. And we also, our buddy Andreas from Mexico just hit me up. His brewery down in Querétaro is having a festival that he invited the three of us to come to. And I was like,
oh, wow.
I said,
you could, they got tickets for Thursday. They got tickets for Saturday.
Yeah.
Wow.
For GABF. If y'all are going, we do any next event we end up doing. I need to do a better job of broadcasting. We're going to be there, because it turns out we have at least like a listener in most major cities. And I'm totally willing to milk that for all it's worth at a bar. Like, you'll get a ton of features on our Instagram, guys. But anyway, I have questions for us this week. I got 4 questions. Our first one's a voicemail. Our buddy Adam from Florida.
Hey guys, this is Adam down here in Florida. You guys are fantastic with your service. James always comes through every time I got some kind of little kegging issue. Josh very responsive about the Trub Club when I was a member with the kits and so forth. And Todd, we've met before, but I've never really had you answer one of my questions lately. But anyway, besides all that, I'm calling because I've got those plastic big mouth fermenters. I think mine are called the Fermonster or something to that effect. And we're all this talk about pressure fermentation lately. Now, I'm not interested in pressure fermenting with these, because that's not the case. But I am interested in rigging up some sort of pressure transfer. I mean, all I have now is, due to my temperature-controlled fridge that I use, which is like a mini fridge, I have the wider, flat-topped air valves on the top. So the hole on the top of my cap is about 1.5 inches wide. I thought I'd get a new flat lid, and then I don't know what to drill or what to fix so that I can pressure transfer. I've got tons of old dip tubes because I converted my keg some time ago to the floating dip tubes. So I just don't know how to cobble this together to be able to pressure transfer from the end of fermentation into my keg. And I'm hoping one of you guys can help with that. Thanks a lot. Love the show. Don't change a thing. Keep up the good work.
Adam, thank you so much for the question. I know, Todd, the variable here that throws me off is it's a wide mouth, because when you do it, you're usually pressure transferring because you secondary from a glass carboy. You put the you use the orange carboy cap on it. You have it rid to be able to have the wand down in there, and then a gas connection, very low psi, like 1 to 3. And then that's how you're pressure transferring that.
3.
The recommended is 1 to 3. You always try to tell me, let's see if it can take 5, but that's neither here nor there. On a wide mouth, his premise, he's gonna get a brand new wide lid for it that's just totally flat, nothing drilled in it. What would you do to configure that for pressure transferring?
Well, I think there's a lot of things you could do. I mean, first of all, I have no idea if that vessel has any pressure rating at all. I don't think it does. It is PET, so I would think that it would be fine at 3 psi, but you have no idea. I don't know that, so don't trust that. But let's assume that it is, and you're going to put you could put a flat lid on it, or you could get a really large bung and use the lid you have. I would probably put some sort, we're doing that a lot of the duotite stuff now, and duotite has some little bulkhead fittings, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be duotite, but I just think of that because I was playing around with them the other day. You could drill holes the size of that and use those bulkhead fittings, and basically have 2 of them on there. One would be putting gas in, one would be putting gas out, and then voila, you have a way to pressure transfer.
Or gas out, you mean gas in and liquid out?
Oh, yeah. What did I say?
Gas in, gas out.
Yeah, gas in, gas out. And then you have gas going back and forth and doesn't solve your problem.
No. That's the title of my memoir, though. That's why I was like, how did you know?
Gas in, gas out?
Yeah, how'd you know the working title? Gas in, gas out. James, you also are a fan of pressure transferring when you're kegging and whatnot, right? You doing gravity now? You do pressure. What would you do on you are the resident MacGyver of this group. I've seen you take much more complicated scenarios and simplify them or manipulate them to resolve whatever issue you're trying to set. So what would you do in Adam's case?
Well, I'm looking at if it's a fur monster, then it has just one big hole in the lid.
But he was saying he's going to get a new cap for it.
Right. I'm just saying this is what I would do. I'm looking at the lid and it's got one big hole. So what I would do is I would take and buy a bung solid and drill it and put 2 tubes in it. One tube for the hose, and put a hose down to the bottom, the liquid, and the other tube just leave it the way it is. And then Todd's right. You don't want to pressure it too much. But what I would do with the bung is I would insert it from the bottom up, because it's tapered, and then screw it down, push it in real good. And then you can move it with 2 or 3 pounds of pressure, and you wouldn't have to worry about the bung popping off.
That's very straightforward. While you were talking, I'm sorry, I was Googling 2 tubes, 1 bung, and now I'm on a list again. So don't Google search that, guys, at home. 2 tubes, 1 bung, not worth looking up. In that way, your solution is making use of what it came with and doesn't have to do anything extra. Wouldn't have to spend. I mean, because the reason I like when you get creative is you are able to MacGyver something with minimal expenses if you can get away with it. Like you're not a fan of just spending money for the sake of it.
Well, if it fixes the problem easier, then yeah, sure. But, I wouldn't be opposed to getting a solid stopper and drilling 2 holes for like some 1/4 inch. We have a ton of stainless steel 1/4 inch tubing that we pull out of a product we sell. Just take something like that, cut off 2 pieces about 4 inches long, and then attach your hose to one side. You can even bend them at the top. You can put a slight bend, and then just like Todd said, just a small amount of pressure, 2 to 3 psi max, just enough to move it from the carboy the fermenter into your keg, and I think you'd be in business. Just you'd want to put that stopper in from the bottom up. That way the taper is under the lid, and then when you're moving it, you don't have to worry about the bung popping out.
Perfect. And I want to add, as we're wrapping up this question, I used to just not pressure transfer because we use buckets and gravity was easy. And oh yeah, we purged, the carboy, or we purged the keg we're going into. So closed transfer is not that big a deal to me. Till having the Anvil fermenter king and the brews or the Firmzilla, the two PET ones that can take pressure. It's so much easier to just pressure transfer. Oh my goodness. Like that, the floating dip tube on those things, making sure like the visual of being able to see when you need to turn it off, and the floating dip tube, making sure you're getting the clean stuff first. And I love it. It's been one of my favorite things with brewing lately or brewing lately.
Yeah. I frankly, I can't remember the last time I didn't pressure transfer anything either. The only exception is going from a bucket to a secondary,
right?
And even with that, I flood and purge the secondary with CO2, so I've never had any issues with it.
Well, and that's why my pop and I've never done it, and we haven't brewed using these new fermenting vessels yet. So it'll be a new thing for my dad the next time we brew together using one, because we've always, like you said, from a bucket, and then we just purge the crap out of the carboy, flood it with CO2. You're the one who told me, like, why? Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. It's got a blanket of CO2 in there. It's not gonna give you any issues, and it hasn't. And the only time I've ever had issues is when I splash it into there, or I don't purge it because I'm lazy. But when you do things proper, go figure, it works how it's supposed to. But yeah, wrapping up Adam's question, is there any way, like, are these solutions we're talking about stuff that I can just send him links to, or are these?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mentioned the duotite. We both mentioned a bong. Even a grommet would work. You could get, when you put your bubbler on a lid, that's called a grommet, that little plastic piece. You can buy those grommets in a hardware store. If you had some stainless steel tubes or even hose or whatever, you just get the right size. You could, and there's so many ways to do it. It wouldn't be hard at all to do. The only question, again, is just I just don't have any idea what the pressure rating is on that vessel.
That is the key to this specific question. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I just took it for granted. Like, oh yeah, everything is now. No, everything's not even just plastic ones. Obviously glass carboys are not. And it's funny you brought that up, Todd, because you're always the one to kind of push the boundaries with what it can handle and what it can't.
Yeah, I can push the boundaries if I want to personally, but I would never recommend other people.
Yeah. Unless Josh is also in your brew room and you're trying to scare him.
Oh yeah, if Josh is there, push the boundary.
Push the boundary.
He's scared to death of something coming apart.
Terrified of glass carboys under pressure. I'm terrified. Anyways, Adam, thank you so much for submitting that question. This is a great reminder, if and when you submit a voicemail to 325-305-6107 that we take on a future episode, you get a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. All text messages and emails through the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com still get a $15 gift card, which I think is pretty stinking good. So, second question is a text message from our buddy Luke at 325-305-6107. He wrote, is there a way to make a dry beer slightly sweeter after it is finished fermenting? Love the podcast, guys. I don't, maybe a stout. I'm trying to think of what style you'd want to make sweeter after the fact. Todd, have you ever had a beer too dry? I don't think I've ever heard that.
I've never felt like I needed to make a beer sweeter, but full disclosure, I like dry beers. So,
but batch sweetening, I know I learned about it with cider the first time we ever had West Coast Witch's Cidery years ago on the show, and she talked about batch sweetening is more common. I believe she was talking about lactose because it's a non-fermentable sugar. Like the yeast aren't going to get reactivated when you use lactose. Is that the most common sugar to use for sweetening?
Yeah, I mean, it would. A lot of it, I think, would depend on the style. I mean, some styles would be great if you a stout, a porter, maybe a porter more so, but it would probably taste great to use that. I wouldn't do it with a lager. I mean,
no.
Well, and Luke it was one of the shortest text messages I've ever gotten, so there's not a lot of context. I didn't reach out. I was just giving him the benefit of the doubt. Is some pastry stout or some porter or just some, I can't imagine it's like, I just brewed an alt beer, James, and I want to make it sweeter. Well, actually, I say that there are some I say sweeter, maltier alt beers, there are. But is there any other thing than adding some lactose when would you add, like, if you realize it's dry, I'm assuming this is at the point of it's probably in the keg already, or it's in your, it's cold conditioning and you're about to transfer. Is it okay to do it then? When would you batch sweeten a beer if you're going to batch sweeten? The look of disgust on your face, James, is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to let James answer this question.
If I was going to do it personally, and you guys this is my own opinion, I could be totally wrong with that. I would probably, if I was going to use lactose, I would do like a little bit on a pan on the stove, get it really good and dissolved, and cool it down and add it really carefully, because you're talking about big risk for oxidation when you're doing that after the fact.
Oh, good point.
Another thing to do is you could add a little honey. I know it's fermentable, but if it's cold and you're fixing to carbonate it.
I'm with you, James. I think once it's super cold, I don't think that you're going to wake it up and it's going to start fermenting again.
Yeah, and honey comes out, it doesn't splash a whole lot. So if you're punting honey in, it's pretty. The way it would flow in, I would probably tilt, and I'm so scared about oxidation. I personally probably would never do that.
You just brew differently the next time, right? I mean,
what I would do is I would send the beer to Todd, and then I would brew another batch.
That's what I knew.
Todd likes dry beer.
I knew that was and that was going to be kind of my wrap up thought on it. Was like, for me, because I the more you were saying it, James, the more I realized, like, I would mess it up some other way that would be worse than it being dry. It being dry would not be the worst thing that could happen if you're trying to batch sweeten. But this is one of those questions where I'd love some feedback, because the great thing about our Trub Club audience out there listening, the tens of people entertained every week, they have feedback. There's going to be someone. That's how we got into pressure fermentation. That's how we got into Kvike recently. All that. There's going to be someone who can reach out, leave a voicemail, so you get $25 of Todd's money, and they'll be able to tell us, like, I batch sweeten beer all the time, and here's why, and here's how I do it, and we'll be like, oh, that made sense, because we are old dogs. A couple of these guys are older than the third dog, and new tricks is just not a thing for us. Like, I am so closed-minded on some things because I'm just set in my ways to where I wouldn't see that perspective if someone didn't leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107. I'm very promotional today. But Lute, that is a great question, and I'm hoping someone in the audience can provide some perspective outside of ours, because I think the consensus is we wouldn't batch sweeten because of the risk of oxidation. We would accept the dry beer for what it is. If you had to do it, maybe honey is your best choice if it's already cold and you're about to carbonate. But
because you think about it, the way honey pours, there's not going to be a whole lot of splashing. So here's the way I do it. I would add a little honey, and then I would purge the keg with CO2, and then force carbonate it. Well, you'll do two things. You're carbonating it, and you're also dissolving the honey into the beer. So I would do that right before you force carbonate, and that would be the only way I would probably do it.
I didn't say it yet, but I'll say it now because I wrote it on my own personal notes. I was going to recommend the Michael Scott Splenda every pour. You pour some in there, you put some Splenda. Yeah, tastes like Splenda, gets you drunk like Scotch. That was his. But if you doing it there's little packets, just one per beer. Just give it a try, man, and let us know how it turns out. But anyways, Luke,
I think I just
gagged a little.
Gagged, threw up in my mouth slightly when you said that.
I don't have real answers for this because it's outside my will. But we do appreciate you when you send in questions, and we thank you, Luke, for submitting that. Our third question is another text message. Our buddy Everett to 325-305-6107, and he wrote, "New brewer here with a simple question. Explain rice hulls to me like I'm a child. I have a Brewzilla, not sure if I need them when I brew." I'm going to throw this one to James. I don't hardly use them. I don't know if I need to. My understanding is rice hulls are just filters for efficient mash. And I know some styles, you really need them more than others. Like if you're brewing a rye heavy beer, I've read that rice hulls or rice husk, I think they're the same thing, are help the mash to not get stuck and for efficiency of flow. Where like the Kolsch, I can't imagine a scenario where I need rice hulls brewing a Kolsch because I don't have issues with flow. But what are rice hulls? Explain it to me like I'm a child. Don't talk down to Everett. Talk down to me.
All it does, the rice hulls add space between the like if you're doing if you're doing wheat, the wheat when we're running that through the mill, it doesn't have husks around it. So what happens if you don't have something in there to make space for the water to run through the grain bed? It can compact and turn into like a glob mess of starch on the bottom of on top of the false bottom. So all rice hulls do is just they're like, think of them as micro spacers between the starches, and it allows a pathway for the water to run through the grain bed. If you don't have that, it all turns into this glom mess on the bottom. And a stuck mash basically is, think of it like a stuck sink. It turns into one big, huge plug, and the water the wort can't filter back through the grain bed, and you can't get efficiency.
So there are, like you were saying, so there's only certain styles where you feel it necessary to add them in.
Yeah, if you're doing a lot of not barley, but rye or wheat. I keep wanting to say corn.
I love corn too, man.
Yeah, but anything. The reason why you don't need to do it with barley because it comes with its own little filters or little spacers, which is the husks from the, you get the husk pieces, and then you got the endosperm in the center. And that all mixes together, and it gives a pathway for the wort to work through the grain bed. And we're always doing recirculation with the herms. And if we tried to just do, when I did the Pilsen wheat, I did half Pilsen, half wheat, but I also added a couple pounds of rice hulls. And that just aided in, when I did that, I had absolutely no issues with circulation. It circulated just fine. But I think that if I hadn't added the rice hulls, just because rice hulls are cheap, it's a good safety for preventing a stuck mash. I think I would have had to stir it the whole time.
What is are you just using Brewer's Friend to calculate how much rice hulls you need, or is it not as scientific as how we measure out to the gram for a recipe?
It doesn't matter. I mean, 2 pounds. If I was doing a 5-gallon batch, I probably wouldn't use more than half a pound. That's just a number I pulled right out of my head.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, but that's what's worked for you, because that's what's worked. Yeah. Right. That's. I mean, a lot of what I do is also what works for me. Todd, I can't remember you ever using rice hulls. Is it because your system is so?
Rice hulls on the last time I brewed. I didn't
brew with you last time. Last time I brewed with you was a Kolsch, and we didn't use it.
Yeah, no. The last thing I brewed was that hazy IPA. And I had, let's see, I'll look it up. I was trying to look it up here. Okay, so the recipe was 25 pounds of pale ale, 8 pounds of white wheat, and I had 4 pounds of flaked oats in it. So I used 4 pounds of rice hulls. I wouldn't have normally used 4, but our pressure fermentation friend, I don't want to drop him under the bus here, but he suggested, when we were sitting around talking the day that we brewed, he said, "Oh man, I use a lot more." So I brought 6 home, but I didn't think about the fact that I filled my fermenter. I filled
a lot of rice hulls.
I filled it to the top. When I got to about 4 pounds, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm glad I didn't put more in," because there's no way I could have held another ounce while I was doing the mash.
Well, so
I would probably do 3 next time instead of 4. But what he said was, the more the better, basically. It doesn't hurt. So it has absolutely no effect on the taste. So I would say use as much as you can if you're worried about getting a stuck mash, because it's not detrimental to use more, except at some point you just don't have enough volume in your, it depends on what system you're using. But in my case, I don't have enough volume when I'm doing the mash and everything.
That's a good point. The factor is how much can you fit in? Because you're right. I can't, on this G40, I'm not going to put in 4 pounds with my 10-gallon recipe.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about a 17
no, I know.
gallon recipe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Context. Yeah.
So, maybe that would equal around a pound if somebody's doing a 5-gallon recipe. But, I mean, it made a huge difference. So this thing was full. It was so full I could barely stir it, and you got to kind of get down there and lift it up. And I was having to be super careful. But I'll tell you this: I did not have any. I mean, think about that. That's a lot of wheat,
Yes.
and that is a lot of oats in a recipe. And I had absolutely zero issues. I mean, it flowed perfectly the whole time.
Just for the sake of conversation, I really don't care. How is that hazy turning out?
It is so good. Oh, I had some last.
Oh yeah, right.
I had some.
I'll take your word
I had
for
some
it.
last night. It is absolutely, for those of us that don't only drink Kolsch, like on the last question.
I was about to use that as our segue. Go ahead.
As the last question, the guy says, how would you sweeten a beer after you're done with it? You got to keep in mind when you're asking these questions, guys. All Josh hears is, how would you sweeten a Kolsch?
Yeah, well, I do. Like, why would you do that? Why would you
he
want to do that?
doesn't. Beer and Kolsch are interchangeable for him.
Yeah, it's synonymous. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's like me and pills.
Totally.
Oh, I want to brew.
But you do brew a variety of pills. I just brew your true to style Kolsch. Like, that's all I want on tap all day, every day. I will say this, shout out to Aqua Brew, or maybe I'll bleep that out because they haven't replied to my sponsorship email yet. Their local brewery here, they call it a Kolsch style. It's one of the best commercial blonde Kolsch styles that I've had in a long time. It is really good. I keep telling you.
I like that brewery too.
Yeah, Aqua Brew is great. You know what? One of your daughters worked there for a little bit.
Yep.
Before they moved, and she got a different job. But yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she worked there.
I forget because you and I visited. I don't remember the Kolsch being on the menu when you and I visited that one time. We had like a San Marcos Bach, maybe is what it was called, or I forget what, or Texas State Bach, or I don't know. But I don't remember there being a Kolsch because I would have tried.
I had an
Kolsch.
IPA.
You probably definitely had the IPA.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. So rice holes, explaining to like a child. They're.
What did you call me?
You heard me, rice hole. No, that. Oh man, yeah. No, I'm not gonna bleep that out, but just everyone know it was a joke. Don't take this as a snippet out of context or anything.
What, rice hole?
No, I'm just saying. That just sounds. It just felt bad coming out of my. Like, it just sounds like it could be derogatory, somehow, some way. I'll leave it at that. Anyway,
I'm sure somebody out there takes it that way.
1-star review, baby. Here we come. Everett, thank you so much for submitting that question. We do have one final question. Came from our buddy Hal, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Hal wrote, Josh, first off, you got to expand your palate. Kolsch is good, but man can't live by Kolsch alone.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Todd's way. Oh, this is so gross. Todd's way is the way. Brewing all the time in all the styles. Speaking of Todd, I have a Todd question. I had to edit out another 4 paragraphs.
Wow, I like this guy.
Okay, for Hal, I had to edit out the 4 paragraphs you had.
I can't
sucking up the Todd.
believe. I don't know how the world he got this question on the show though.
I mean, he said Kolsch. I have a filter that just takes questions. Your video, talking to you, Todd, your video about building a DIY teaser is how I found the podcast, and I'm finally ready to do it. I have an old top freezer style fridge to work with. Couple of questions. Is there a way to remove the freezer divider and turn this into one large fridge? That's probably a dumb question. It is dumb, Hal. There's not much I can think of for how to use the freezer once I convert the bottom fridge into a kegerator. Also, can I drill through the side rather than the front door? This fridge will fit better in the space I have with it sideways. I should call you to customize this build for me after I get a gift card from Josh. Thank you for the entertainment every week, Hal. That's how he got on there, because he made me laugh. Let me take a stab at some of this before you do. Okay. Drilling on a fridge is okay when you know where the refrigerant lines are. That's my only piece of advice I can offer to kegerator builds is when you're drilling anywhere, the door is always safe because there's never refrigerant lines in the door. That's why people. You're having a look on your face. Are there ever refrigerant lines on doors, Todd?
I don't think so.
I would say, well, they're hinged.
I hate to. I mean, they've probably made 10,000 fridge units since they started making them. So I hate to say it never.
Okay, it's very unlikely, which is why people feel comfortable drilling through doors. Drilling through the side, you start getting through drilling. I mean, I just don't know. You really need the manual of the fridge, wouldn't you?
I would. I would be very leery of drilling through the side. Now, some fridges use different ways to do it. So he was asking about opening up the inside, and I guess what he's saying is open the top and the bottom so that the freezer and the fridge are combined.
Yeah, that was his first part.
And the issue with that is that fridges use different systems. First and foremost, most of those bigger fridges have some sort of a baffle that sends a certain amount of cold to the top, certain amount of cold to the bottom, and they can kind of regulate that. So it's all the cold's coming from the same place, but they put it different places, and it's all done by the thermostat. So if you were going to do that, I wouldn't know how to do that. I mean, you'd have to determine how to only have it. I don't know. I mean, I don't. That sounds like a nightmare to me, trying to cut that out. And also, I don't know what's in that middle layer. There might be coolant lines in that middle layer for all I know. I have no idea. I mean, I would say that sounds like something I wouldn't want to give advice on.
Well, hold on. Before we move on from that part, he was like, I can't figure out a reason to use it. He can freeze DME up in there. He could put another thermostat controller up there, correct me if I'm wrong, and use it at more refrigerant type levels and store hops in there, right? And other things. You can't change both?
You can't put a, you're talking about one that turns the electricity on and off, and it's going to, that's not going to work.
That's not going to work. You're right. Yeah. I was thinking like, your bottom part's already, but you're right. The temperature, it's not two separate electricity or two separate power lines.
And some of them don't use that system at all. Some of them use it's kind of like a coil thing in the back or on the top. It's a plate. I don't know the right term. Do you know the term for it, James?
Yeah, there's a divider that separates the freezer from the fridge section. And then at that divider, typically most fridges under the divider, there's a thermal door. That's that little switch. There's actually the switch controls not only the compressor, but it also can control. There's a thermostatically controlled door. Mine has two on each side, and it'll open and then close. Yeah. So there's a lot of electronics and there's a lot of wiring that goes between that built-in divider between the freezer section and the fridge section. So
and then there's the other way they do it, and which is a plate that gets cold, and it's not even air; it's just that plate. And I don't know.
Would be, we would call the evaporator plate.
Okay.
So the evaporator side on it in an AC system is the cold side. The condensation side, or the condenser side, is the hot side. Mm-hmm. So really all they're doing is they're compressing the refrigerant, and they're pushing it through a small hole, and it's coming out and that's where you get the temperature transfer. So it's going hot to cold. The cold is the evaporator, the hot is the condenser. And if it's in there and it's on a solid plate, you don't want to touch it, because you could even move it an inch and cause it to leak.
So what I would do is I would use the fridge as a fridge and the freezer as a freezer. That would be my answer.
Yeah, for that part of it.
Yeah, and just then, to be safe.
And then on the last part, to wrap it up for him, drilling through the side, do you feel comfortable doing it, Todd, on any fridge? Okay. Or
I mean, the way that I've done it before, because a lot of these little kegerators, college dorm fridges, that they make some that are big enough to hold a keg, and I have converted those before. And what we used to do on that was I would mix up baking soda and water and spread it across, and alcohol, and spread it across the whole thing, plug the fridge in, and it would dry up where those coils were. And you could tell where they were. And that's the way we found those. That's kind of back in the day when we used to do it. So you might be able to do that with a side unit, but what I would, if I was going to drill a hole in the side, I would try to figure out where it is, and then I would drill a very small, shallow hole, try to enlarge it, pull insulation out, and instead of drilling through, I would slowly work my way in through the insulation, make sure there's not a line till you get to the other side, and then drill the hole.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I was thinking too during this whole question, have you noticed, Todd, or I've noticed at least feedback, even on orders, that video presentation, y'all were both in it, but you were just leading that talk on the Kegerator build. It's been getting a lot of views lately, or at least a lot of feedback and comments. A lot of people calling in saying, hey, I watched this video. I want to do this. I wonder what YouTube algorithms are blessing us for, because if we did that video now 2 or 3 years ago,
2 or 3 years ago, but a lot of people call me personally and ask me about it and get advice, and
from that video,
is great,
right?
Which is great. Yeah. Cause they just want to know, they want to change something, or they want to do something different, or they have a question. And yeah, it was a fun project, and one that I enjoy every night to this day.
Well, your keezer is what I will say this, the pros of having a keezer, like yours specifically, is so nice. It's a conversation starter. When people go to your barn, they see the TV that I bought you because I thought I was using your money, but I lost that bet. And that has the menu.
Which, by the way, makes the gift so much sweeter.
It's the worst. Oh, it's the worst. But they see that with the menu on it, and then all those beautiful V10 faucets from CM Becker, because it really is. Before we recorded, I was talking about Corvettes with James. I saw the most, what is it called, a C8?
C8.
Beautiful, one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen in my life passed me today, and it ended up being a Corvette C8. But these V10s are legitimately the most beautiful faucets if you had to rank faucets that are available on the market. But it's a conversation starter. That's the pro. You have delicious beer on tap. That's the pro. The con is people who work for you or your friends or whatever come over and drink all your beer because you're now the guy with beer on tap. Am I right, Todd?
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing to me how much beer is consumed when my friends come over. So I think like I have so much beer. Oh my gosh, I have so much beer. And that the beer the one that you didn't care for, the lager brewed with
the pepper pills.
Yeah,
the Sterling pills. Yeah.
Sterling. Which it is so funny that you didn't like it because my friends all came over
loved it.
and they drank. I literally had put that keg in a day or two before.
They floated it.
They floated the keg that weekend. They drank more of that than anything else.
And that's example like number 500, why your friends are idiots. Like point proven.
Okay, so I absolutely can't argue with that that particular statement. But no, it's just amazing how much beer people consume when you get a group of guys together over a weekend. Wow.
Absolutely. But yeah, so how we encourage it. Actually, everyone listen. One of our favorite things is making draft beer solutions. And it's been cool the last few years or however many years we've been doing the podcast now of how many people do call in. They recognize, because Todd or James are always the one answering the phone, and then y'all help, and then y'all configure like the dream kit for them to do their own build because they saw us cover the content on YouTube or talk about it on the show at some point. Or I think last time I was up there, someone called and what did he call you? The infamous Todd Burns is who I'm speaking with. Or, didn't that what he said? I forgot.
Something like that,
yeah, the guy, because I had been setting up in Todd's office with my laptop, and he goes, "Well, yes, I am the infamous Todd Burns. How can I help you?" It was so gross. I couldn't stand it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but anyway, Hal, thank you for submitting the question. Fellas, that's all I've got for this week. I greatly appreciate your time, and I will see you guys soon.
Thanks.
See ya.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or you could be Todd's best friend by leaving a voicemail to 325-305-6107. Hey, get a free pack of Imperial yeast along with premium, delicious, insert other good word recipes here from us when you join our Chop Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.